Welcome to All the F Words,
a podcast where two writer friends nearly 30 years apart explore everything we give an F about. I'm Gabby Moskowitz.
And I'm Joanne Greene. On each episode of All the F Words, we'll focus on a theme starting with the letter F. Things like focus, friendship, and family.
We'll share stories from our lives and our distinct generational perspectives and look to the experts for insights and ideas.
Today we're talking about future. And no, we don't mean robots, aliens, and travel to Mars. We mean both our personal and collective futures and how we manage our feelings about them.
Specifically, we're talking about anticipation and the joy and anxiety that comes with it.
Oh, I'm glad we're going to talk about the joy and not just the anxiety. But does this mean we don't get to talk about flying cars?
Not today, but that is an F word, so maybe we can do that one in the future, as it were. I want to know, what is your relationship with anticipation? So when something's coming up, good or bad, are you someone who just tries to live in the moment, or do you fixate on something? And I know obviously sometimes it's different when something's good or not so good, but do you tend to fixate on what's coming up soon, or do you try to put it out of your mind?
Well, I do both of those things. I fixate and I get very excited with anticipation. I also, when there's something with an unknown outcome, I do have a tendency to become anxious and play out scenarios in my mind. And in reference to your very first question, I am absolutely someone who attempts to live in the moment and be present and mindful. So all of the above.
Yeah. I'm also right there with you, and it's interesting. It really varies from from thing to thing what it is, how I respond to it. But yeah, I think sometimes I get so fixated on trying to live in the moment that I don't really live in the moment.
Meditation really helps, Gabby. I am here to say I've been meditating even just for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
On a regular basis. Allows you that ability to just tune into what you're feeling at this exact moment.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Enough said.
I love that. I think I should probably start doing it more. I do sometimes feel like, for better or for worse, sometimes parenting is the thing that drags me out of my head and into, especially right now where, they're so little and there's just constantly something. And so I can only do so much thinking about whatever I'm future tripping about, which is a word, by the way, that an old therapist of mine used to use, future tripping. Have you heard that before?
No, but I love it. Tell me more about it.
It's kind of like, it's kind of what we're talking about today. It's like obsessing about the future, for better or for worse. And when I first started researching this episode, I actually was thinking that I was going to research more about like climate future and like kind of what we were saying in our intro, space travel and what scientifically is coming up. But what I found is that is a vast and highly subjective subject and maybe not quite narrow enough to fit into the size of our episodes. And also, I don't know if I really can am able to really like comprehensively talk about those things.
Gabby, it's not our lane. Our lane is feelings and relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you are absolutely right. And that is the lens through which we're going to talk about future, because anticipatory anxiety, which is something we're going to talk about, and also the positive effects of anticipation, depending on what you're anticipating, are both very real. So, like, for example, we'll get into this in more detail, but while it's troubling to anticipate something that you're worried about, like everything from the specific, like an upcoming doctor's appointment or something at work or something with a family member, all the way to what's going to happen, certainly something I panic about a lot. I think a lot of us do. What's happening to the world? What kind of world are we leaving for our children and grandchildren? So those are both things that anticipatory anxiety can both worsen, and things that provoke anticipatory anxiety. But also, there are a lot of benefits to anticipating something positive, and there have been studies that have shown that that in terms of brain activity, sometimes anticipating something positive, like a vacation or a special meal, or getting to see someone you love, is just about as positive for the brain as actually doing the thing.
This makes total sense to me. Here's the thing. We can control our thoughts. We forget this. And particularly we anxious people forget this. We think that we are entirely victimized by this force that takes over us. And we can program our brains, and we can tell our brains what to focus on in order to make us feel better. I have a cousin right now who's just gone through triple bypass surgery, and he sent me a long text this morning, rambling. I'm sure it was at 4 a.m. too, so it was probably in some drugged stupor about and this, and she didn't come to visit me, and she only came for 2 hours, and she's out doing this. And I just wrote back this long text saying, focus on the following. You made it through the surgery. You made it through the first 7 days. Be grateful that your body did this. Be grateful for your surgeon. Be grateful for the medical team. Be grateful for the fact that she's taken care of you for decades. Be grateful for the fact that she's living her life. And, that's really what it's about. It's rather than constantly giving ourselves messages that dig us into a deeper downward spiral, we have the opportunity to lift ourselves up.
Well, I think we get addicted sort of to the your cousin's experience. I think that we get kind of addicted to thinking about what is happening next. Anyone who has ever felt like as soon as I get this job, lose this weight, go accomplish this thing, et cetera, et cetera.
Meet my person.
Yes, exactly. Then everything will be okay. But then those things happen, and then we start looking for reasons why those things won't be okay, or why we are not yet fully actualized. And so and a lot of this gets back to anticipatory anxiety, which is itself not its own diagnosis. It's a symptom of generalized anxiety disorder or panic disorder. And it refers to specific worry about future events, the fear over what bad things could happen. And it can be kind of an addictive cycle where our neural pathways are so deeply carved, where we get so used to existing in this cycle of fear that it can be really hard to move beyond.
And it's even harder when you pay attention to the barrage coming at you from the media.
Yeah.
Yesterday morning, we were listening to an audio. I think it was just like the 5 things you need to know. It was like a CNN morning news wrap-up thing. And each one was more atrocious than the one before. The number of dead and the earthquake in Syria and Turkey, and how they already don't have access to food. And then the next one was about record company profits of BP, British Petroleum, and how that was impact. And it was just, and then, the Chinese wanting their balloon back. I mean, if you actually listened closely to all of these things, you would not want to get out of bed.
Well, our brains are not, and our nervous systems are not designed for the 24/7 news cycle, and the way that social media just needs us to. I mean, I think sometimes when I'm looking at TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, that the whiplash of going from looking at somebody's kid's birthday party to a devastating piece of news to a celebrity's Grammy pictures. It's so jarring to go through all of those feelings at once that no wonder our concept about our own, we've talked already about the way that people compare themselves and get paralyzed by that. But I think sometimes just riding the wave of what we're experiencing from we're not accustomed to taking in the, like, empathy aside, the experiences of so many other people and so many events at once, one after another. And I think it kind of exhausts us. And then when we have to sort of make sense of our own reality, I don't know, it really kind of messes with it.
Well, I think there's a few different things that can happen. So one is you numb out. One is you just become inured to the emotional impact of each of these things.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we wonder why we love cat videos, or in my case, puppy videos, because I need that quick shot of endorphin that makes me go, it just feel good all over. And I now know that through social media, I can get that. I can get that. And it definitely takes you out of that fear of the future, or playing out scenarios in your mind, which is so unproductive. I mean, obviously, we do have control to some degree, and it's a minor degree over how our life is going to play out. And I think it's very hard for human beings to hold at once these two truths. One, it's almost like, it reminds me of the future, the world was made for me, and I am but a speck of dust. The same thing is true. I can absolutely control and impact my destiny, and I can work really hard and achieve my goals. And I might get hit by a car in a crosswalk in broad daylight tomorrow. And you have to hold both of those at all times simultaneously. And there's really no roadmap for how to do that, except to feel gratitude and to be in the present. This whole notion of being in the present moment. What am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? And what's that about? Is a place you can go back to time and time again when you feel yourself spiraling out with anticipatory anxiety.
Well, and I think also one thing I learned from learning about anticipation is that using that energy, that nervous energy about what's coming up, if you're able to balance the challenging part of it with positive anticipation, you can do a lot of good for your brain. So I have a friend who is obsessed with sweets, and she kind of like, I can't tell you how many times I've been with her when this has happened, or we've just been out together, where she has driven miles and miles out of her way to go to a specific bake shop to pick up one cupcake that she will then save until the exact time, after dinner, when she wants to sit down by herself and enjoy that cupcake. And I'm not really that into sweets. I don't really, I kind of can take them or leave them. And so I don't really understand that specific proclivity. But what she has said is that the longer she draws it out, the more she researches it and thinks about it and reads the menu over and over again and decides exactly which cupcake she's going to get, the better the whole thing is. And I think that it's like a way of expanding the enjoyment beyond just the moment of consumption. And that is something that researchers have seen a lot with travel, particularly in the era of COVID, because we couldn't do it for such a big chunk of time. And when people started to book those vacations after they hadn't been able to do it for so long, the joy, so stuff like travel social media just like exploded. And not just people posting their own pictures, but actual travel influencers, and the world of the travel industry had this explosion as people started wanting to engage with everything having to do with this thing that they weren't able to do. It's kind of like porn almost, like the way that that we want to stretch out the experience before it happens and then after with remembering it.
So many things to say on this topic. So first of all, I think her pattern is actually pretty healthy. I mean, this is not a person who overeats. This is this is not a person who eats, right, who can't stop eating cupcakes because that's what she's thinking about. This is someone who has taken her love of sweets the same way someone might with anything. I mean, you mentioned porn. I jokingly have said that I look at dog rescue sites, and that's my porn, because I imagine that I can rescue all of these dogs, and I read the descriptions of them, and I find out, what they're like, and I try to imagine if they were here and would they get along with my dog. I mean, it's just rather insane. I feel like I'm admitting like a sickness here, but yet, no, it's actually super healthy. And then ultimately I come to the decision that no, I am not adopting a dog. And then I hope that someone else does. And then I move on to the next page. But all of these things, I think, are ways of dealing with controlling our own happiness and certainly controlling our own anxiety. And savoring moments. You're absolutely right about travel. I mean, planning a trip is so exciting. Packing for a trip, laying out the clothes and figuring out what you're going to wear, looking at a menu before you go. Like my birthday's coming up and we have a reservation at a new restaurant that I've never been to. And I've looked at the menu once and I'm looking forward to looking at it again today and imagining, might I order this?
There are two kinds of people in the world, in my experience. There are people who go to restaurants cold, just, make the reservation or show up and then look at the menu and see what looks good in that exact moment. And I know that sounds very healthy, but I don't relate to that at all, because every time I go to even if it's a planned meal, if it's not just something I'm randomly stopping off to do when I'm out, which, let's be honest, I don't really ever do that anymore because my life is not really conducive to it. But even before then and now, if I'm going to a restaurant, I have read every single item on the menu. I have spent time deciding what I'm going to have. I have gone onto Yelp and Instagram and looked at pictures of the food. I have done my research, and it's part of the experience.
Gabby, food is your porn. It's very simple.
It's very true.
More on how we can feel optimistic and deal with thoughts of the future after these messages. Anticipation matters, right? Is this a new bumper sticker? Anticipation matters.
Yeah, right. When we have a merch store at some point, we can make that bumper sticker. My cat is on my lap. Can you hear? Is the purring distracting?
No, but I think we should leave this in, because if there is purring, there she is.
There she is.
Hello, little kitty.
So, we should tell our listeners, as we were setting up the sound check, we heard this sound of dripping water, and I couldn't figure, it was coming from my microphone. I couldn't figure out what it was. I checked every sink and toilet in my house, and it turned out it was my cat's water fountain. So Fun
I
little
was
behind the scenes.
I was very pleased that I wasn't hearing, like I didn't have one of those tinnitus or tinnitus or whatever it's called, and that I was hearing water dripping, because can you imagine anything more torturous than
Oh,
just
yeah. Like
continuously hearing water dripping and there's
having
no
your
water?
ears waterboarded, that would be terrible.
Yeah, I think it actually is a form of torture.
Oh,
But
yeah.
in fact, we don't want to talk about how we can make our minds crazy. We want to talk about how we can think about the future in a way that uplifts us.
Right, right. So I actually have a whole thing from the New York Times on how to use anticipation to increase your happiness. So there's a great piece in the New York Times, came out a few months ago, or no, it came out in May, called "To Enjoy Life More, Embrace Anticipation." So let me tell you about the things they recommend. I feel like this is very up your alley, Joanne. The first is get excited about a lot of little things.
Hello.
So I feel like that is definitely your forte. So the accumulation of many thrills means that you're going to reap the benefits of looking forward to something, even if it's not a big ticket reward. So it could be everything from a new book or getting donuts or going out to a little meal with someone. And it's very adjacent to gratitude, to, it's maybe if gratitude is feeling thankful for the little things and big things, this is getting excited, letting yourself really get excited. And I really love that. A few other suggestions. Go ahead.
And before you go on, I just want to say there's a part of me that wants to then say, but what if the experience doesn't measure up to how you anticipated it would? And my answer to that is, so what? You've had the great experience of anticipating it, and then you have the experience. It's like a separate thing. You don't have to then measure up the experience with how you anticipated it occurring.
My daughter, Anna, has recently kind of put together the idea that when she can get into the present moment, sometimes she can decide how to react to something. And we were coloring a birthday card for a friend whose party she was going to, and she was kind of freaking out because she didn't like something about the way she was coloring it, and she was so excited about doing this, and then the rainbow didn't look the way she wanted it to, and she started to freak out, and then she stopped herself and she said, maybe I could take a break from screaming and figure out how to turn this rainbow into a tree. And I was like, that's what we all need to be doing. We all need to just figure out how to turn the rainbows into trees.
Love that.
It can be so hard when you've gotten really attached. It's interesting. The thing that's interesting about what we're talking about anticipation today is the message is kind of, you need to simultaneously attach to the future outcome and be open to outcome, because you have to attach to a positive future outcome, because that's how you engage with the positive benefits of anticipation. But then when it doesn't necessarily happen the way you're expecting, you have to find a way to ride the wave and have gratitude. And it's a tricky dance. But one of the recommendations from this New Yorker article I thought was really interesting is finding ways. They say a gentle bribe can work wonders, but really what that means is promising yourself a treat or a reward when anyone who's ever, gone out for frozen yogurt after going to the gym knows like how when you attach a reward to something that you don't necessarily want to do, or anyone who's ever taken a kid to go to the dentist or get a shot, when you attach a reward to it, all of a sudden it can become something that you look forward to. Do you have any?
Sure.
Things?
I mean, well, that is why, doctor's offices have lollipops, right?
Right.
That's why Band-Aids have designs on them. It's all of that. And I think, we play little tricks with our own minds. And what we need often is motivation. And so anticipating a certain result or setting up a reward for yourself kind of gets you over the line and gets you over whatever it is that's holding you back from accomplishing that goal and just pushes you over the finish line.
Have you ever used the Pomodoro system for writing or working of any sort? Do you know about that?
No.
The idea is that you, I think it's called Pomodoro because of those tomato timers. Remember those that were really popular, like in the 90s?
I just know the Pomodoro tomatoes.
Right. I think Pomodoro is tomato, right? Or no, maybe that's not right. It's a kind of tomato, or a sauce. I'm not sure. But the Pomodoro method with writing is one of the. Whenever I am having a hard time staying focused, I rely on this method because it's a system that you can just subscribe to, and you set the timer for 20 minutes, and there are apps you can use for this, or you can just set the timer on your phone. And for 20 minutes, you don't do anything but write. At the end of the 20 minutes, this isn't always a part of the Pomodoro method, but you're supposed to take a break. So that's one reward. And then
That's when you eat the cupcake? Is that when you get the cupcake?
Yeah, every 20 minutes you eat a cupcake, and that's how you write. But I try to reward myself with a little break. So a little social media break, cat videos, whatever you're into, or I'll get up and stretch, or I'll go make a cup of tea, knowing that just ahead I have something that's going to be pleasurable, makes it so that the relationship with the challenging thing, the thing that I don't always want to be doing, which is the work, is much easier to face.
That makes sense. I like that method.
So
perhaps I'll try it.
I really recommend it. And then one that I thought was really interesting, and also one that I witness quite a bit with my small children, is they say make up a story. So the idea is to tell a little story to yourself about what might happen, positive or negative, positioning yourself as the protagonist. And it can help you contextualize what's going on, whether it's a stressful situation or something that you're excited about. It's a way of engaging. It's a way of both minimizing stress by doing the thing that we're so tempted to do, which is run through a scenario in our mind over and over again, but telling a story in which there's a positive outcome. Or if it's something that you're excited about, engaging with the story of when you go to Puerto Vallarta and you drink, the delicious tropical drink on the beach and eat the delicious food and the sun is shining and you really tell the story. And it's a way of fully, fully engaging in fantasy. I'm thinking of our fantasy episode and about how engaging in fantasy can really make you feel like you're there and can have the benefits for our brain that actually doing the thing can. So
before we wrap up this episode, Gabby, I want to ask you what in general you feel about your future. Do you have a vision for what your future holds?
It's interesting. I think if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have been a lot more anxious. But now I've spent the last decade, I think, I don't think I really did a lot of being a grown-up in my 20s, but I would say 30 to 40, and I'm almost 41. I really started to understand how I do life. And even though there are a lot of things I'm very scared about in the world, I feel like I have enough roots laid down in not just the capitalistic norms of house and work and family and all that, but enough, I have enough footing in who I am that I feel like if I just keep trudging forward day after day, I'm going to be going in a direction that feels good for me. And that's kind of the best that I've got right now. I also have realized that seeing too far into the future isn't necessarily good for me. I feel like I got the main broad strokes, and then the details are like a Monet picture kind of coming together slowly. What about you?
Got it. I have just the future's bright is really what I have to say. I am my book's coming out in 4 months, and I hope to ride that and speak about it, and really not so much speak about the book, but speak about the lessons that I learned that led me to write the book, and share whatever wisdom I've been able to accumulate in these many years. I've had the opportunity to be on this planet, and I do that more and more in my personal life, sharing my perspective where I think it can be of help to people. And I feel like this podcast and the additional podcast that I'm going to be launching shortly, which is called In This Story, it's going to be published every other week, as All the F Words is now being published every other week. These are all ways for me to feel like my life has great meaning. And it's almost like, what do you want to do when you no longer have to work to earn money, if you're so lucky? And many people say it's time to give back. And so figuring out it's time to give back, and it's also an incredible privilege to give back, and it feels great. And you feel like everything you've worked for is just continuing to pay dividends. So that's how I see my future. I feel like my role as a grandmother is just going to continue to grow, as it is growing every single time I see my grandchildren. And so, yeah, as long as I remain healthy and the people that I love remain healthy, yay.
Well, amen to that.
And with that, we say thanks so much for listening to All the F Words. If you would like to share All the F Words with someone in your life, we would greatly appreciate it. And there are a variety of ways to do that.
We are on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also email us. We've been getting a lot of email lately, which has been pretty cool. We are at allthefwordspod@gmail.com. And on all the social media platforms, we are All the F Words Pod.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.